Speaking of emotions, can we transform to the 99-year-old emotional, angry, China-loving person against crypto?
You see in Bitcoin along with risky assets, but Bitcoin is really surging. I mean, it's real. Like, everyone's like, it's going to, people like to call it zero. It's so funny. The asset prices was it closing on 25,000, 24.5 now. It was 15,000 around the low and stuff, but it's up incredibly since then. And they had Munger on, and let me see if I can quote him here. What did he say? An absolute horror. Ashamed of my country. Can't believe government allowed this to exist. Well, they didn't really have a choice, right? I mean, they could have tried to shut it down. They just didn't really.
Too bad we already gave this away, but until this point, it could be a fun game. You don't know what he's talking about there. It could be anything. It could be alcohol. It could be gambling. It could be crypto. But
that's what he said, gambling, right? He said it's gambling. It's stupid. And yet, what did Becky Quick say about gambling?
Well, it was, she asked him, this was with the Daily, what's the Daily, the company he's part of, Daily, the reason he was talking and taking questions, Daily, the paper, I think.
I don't know.
Okay. Well, anyway.
I didn't see the interview. I just saw the quotes on it,
and
I'm laughing because every time you see
Daily something,
and they're going to ask about crypto because that's going to give them the best quotes,
exactly,
that's going to give them the best headlines, right? So that's what seems.
Yes, and he mentioned, it's just like gambling, or it's a bad way to gamble, and then Becky was mentioning that she was asking him about other gambling, and he doesn't have near as a problem as that. It's just this. I've said this in the past. This just proves, and I really respect Charlie Munger. He is one of the smartest investors. Him and Warren Buffett are the tag team, of course, of capitalism. This absolutely proves that when you're rich, people just assume you're smart across all segments and every aspect of the economy.
Daily Journal, by the way.
Daily Journal.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Munger is fantastic. However, he is bought and paid for like every other corporate wimp out there in brand that has to bend the knee to China and just is all about money. And that's okay. I'm not saying that he's a bad person for that. I'm just simply saying that, listen, we're all hypocrites. Doc Holliday said it best. My hypocrisy only goes so far when he saved Wyatt Earp's ass in Tombstone. The point is that he's got, and I don't mind this, but the way he praises one of the greatest capitalist teams ever to generate massive wealth, billions of dollars, build Berkshire Hathaway, turns around and praises the most terrible communist, cutthroat, thumb, foot on your head type government, tells them to ban everything. Look at how they control their citizens. He's in favor of this. Now, of course, you can say that from behind the wall of capitalism, because guess what? If your name is Jack Ma and you do that crap over in China, what do?
Disappear.
You take a vacation for a long time. Or if you're in Saudi Arabia and you're an uncle of the new prince over there that likes to throw crap around, guess what? You lose a bunch of weight and you stay at the Ritz-Carlton. Now, there's allegations you might get stripped and, hung upside down and beat. Who knows? My point is that this is the biggest hypocrisy, and it's just hilarious. You just ought to ignore this guy. You ought to absolutely do the exact opposite of what he's talking about here with crypto. If Charlie Munger, every time he comes out, you ought to buy a little bit more allocation to Bitcoin and Ethereum.
And I'll get to crypto in a second, but you bring up a good point, because I think people in America really don't understand. Most people in America don't understand. I'm sure most people haven't traveled outside the country and realize how great this country is, but think about your government, and you try to go right now. You have all your money in your bank, whatever, in your brokerage firms, and say if the government shuts it off and says you have no more access to the money, right? And you have to pay your bills and you can't. What are you going to do? Who are you going to call? You can call a lawyer. You can't fight the government. The government could be like, F you.
Call Charlie.
Right? I mean, just think about that. Like in China, if you speak out against the government, I mean, you see it, right? I mean, this is something that you fear for your life. So you have to be very careful. I don't care how rich you are. You have to play by the rules. We're not used to that here. And, of course, we have our politicians shouting at the top, both of them, yelling at the tech companies for different reasons of why they're the assholes of the world, why oil companies are assholes for generating so many profits. And hey, we should be taxing them. Why? So we get to spend more of your money. Our politicians, they're going to make more money. And that's so they can give it back to people who are less fortunate, which is distribution of wealth, which has never worked in the history of any government, any country in the history of the world. But there's a reason why they do this. They're calling them out. Why? Because it results in more lobbying dollars. It results in more campaign funding, right, from these companies, which fund. There's a reason why. Think about it. Someone shouting at you, telling you that we're going to regulate the crap out of your company. What are you going to do? Right? If your government is telling you that, you're going to donate a lot of money. It's a reason why they're the largest donors, right? It's pretty obvious. So this whole game that's being played out there, it filters into Bitcoin, right? Because You could say, well, Bitcoin's going up because all risky assets are going up. I think it's a lot more than that. And yes, it could contribute to a little bit of this move. But what we saw last year with the bankruptcies and fraud, which shouldn't be limited to, say, FTX is crypto, that's actual fraud. Okay, when you have a firm that has assets, other people's assets on a platform that you're taking and putting them into a hedge fund and nobody knows about, that's fraud. Okay, that's to do with an asshole.
Stealing.
You could say it's in the crypto industry, but it's like saying that the whole utility industry after Enron is horrible.
Bernie Madoff did not mean that Wall Street is uninvestable.
Yeah, so a lot of that happened. But if you're looking at Bitcoin and the case to own Bitcoin, just look at what's going on in Washington. Okay, it's incredible. Look at them trying to fight this thing. Look at the news, right? Over the past month is insane when you really look at the news and what's going on. I mean, just now you're trying to go after out of everything. Out of every single thing, you're going after stable coins. Stable coins, which are like money market accounts. You're going after that, right? Because if you remove that, you're going to hurt crypto. Now you're seeing Binance announce that, hey, you know what? They have Binance US, but the other Binance, we're not accepting money from US investors anymore. Kraken just got fined. You're seeing all these, yet Bitcoin continues to go higher. And when you look at what's happening and you look at, even the whole debt ceiling, right? So the debt ceiling is just it's all political nonsense. Why haven't we heard in a while? Because the Democrats controlled every single branch, right? So it doesn't matter they're passing everything. It doesn't matter what you say.
Well, and it doesn't, the real nervousness isn't for another month or two. I mean, they don't have to do it tomorrow. That's why they're still kicking it.
It's going to happen, like, I believe in the summer. However, and I don't know if people know this, but we did actually reach those limits, right? So we reached those limits. And this was in January, right? And then Yellen came out and said, hey, you know what? Again, we've actually turned out that we hit these limits, the debt ceiling, we reached that current debt limit, and then we had to take extraordinary measures, right, to allow the government to continue borrowing to meet its obligations and stuff. So now we have debt ceiling coming up, and we go back to the Trump era, and there's the back and forth, but we even go back to when the Democrats with the Obama era, and this is where it started, because Obama actually conceded a little bit and said, okay, we're not going to spend as much on certain things, and whether it was, it was reform of Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and he never got forgiven for that, right? So you're going to see all this nonsense going on right now for the Democrats to be like, all right, we have to pass this, right? It doesn't matter what side you're on. If you think they should pass, if you think that they're going to concede, it's all about them getting more money on both sides and how they're going to benefit themselves in order to get all the votes to pass this, right? And they're going to threaten the end of the United States. No one's going to get paid, and it's going to be default, and U.S. is going to default. It's a massive deal. It's going to go on for a couple months, and that's going to be a headwind. It's been a headwind almost all the time when we see this happen during the debt ceiling. But the bottom line is, when you're looking at the debt ceiling, this is a reason why to own Bitcoin, because Congress has voted to increase the debt limit, and this is over the past 25 years, right? We're supposed to worry about this and say, okay, we want to lower our debt. The past 25 years, they increased it more than a dozen times. Okay, so every single government, every central bank, they're going to spend as much money as they can because there's no repercussions. There's no checks and balances. They don't care, right? It's just spend. Who cares? It's more money for them in their pocket, right? So a lot of people disagree. You're supposed to be representing your constituents. They don't. Right. So it's like to keep raising, just raise no matter what, keep spending no matter what. That's why it's always good to have a government that's split, no matter what side are you on. Now it's split. It's good that they're having these talks, but to see all the bullshit around the debt limit and people being worried now when this has been going on for decades, and they raised the debt limit more than a dozen times the past 25 years, what are you going to think is going to happen next 25 years? Constant spending.